Every hospital in Gaza now has been disabled. You're an expectant mother. Imagine you, Candice. Your child is born prematurely and is put in an incubator where the fuel is cut off, and your child that you've been carrying for 9 months suffocates to death. Is that complicated? Does it require a PhD in Middle East studies to figure these things out? In my book, it's as complicated as my family, except for my mother and my father, being shoved into gas chambers. That's how complicated it is in my eyes.
Rabbi, your thoughts?
Well, that's definitely an emotionally powerful claim, but it's actually outrageous. And I think I want to explain why I think that's completely outrageous. Here's a man who's dedicated his entire life to slating Israel and demonizing Israel as best he can. Israel brought incubators into that hospital. There's a reason why there weren't hundreds and hundreds of dead children, these premature babies all over Gaza. Israel has offered them to evacuate long before it even got into the hospital. It gave a corridor. It offered to bring in via the Red Cross incubators to specifically bring those children out. And then before Israel came in, it actually had incubators lined up so they could enter the hospital together. So this is a really horrific slur. When the West was fighting ISIS in Mosul, bombed the Al Salem hospital, right? Bombed the Al Salem hospital because there were ISIS fighters in there. There were patients who died there. But to say that's as simple as chucking them all in gas chambers, it's just, look, there's a lot of legitimate criticisms people can give against Israel. There's areas which I think are misguided, right? But to compare the way Israel surrounded the hospital and very carefully did not bomb the hospital. There was no airstrikes against Al-Shifa Hospital, any of the hospitals. It sent commandos through a side door. It helped civilians evacuate, thousands of civilians evacuate from the hospital in the days leading up. Israel's tactics were very clear and made it obvious to Hamas, which is why their main people were not sitting in that hospital when they got there. The commanders were not there anymore. They found tons of ammunition and weapons in underground tunnels, which I know some people deny exist or whatever, the nonsense. But there's a reason they all got out. Because Israel made it very clear, created evacuation corridors. Well, if civilians evacuating, then a Hamas fighter puts on a full dress, little eyes, and has a gun underneath them, and that's it, out they go. They're not going to be caught in there. Israel did it because it didn't want those babies to be injured and damaged, and which is why it brought incubators in when it came in. Why, when the commandos entered, they entered with medical professionals and Arabic speakers, and why they were on the phone to the hospital heads for so long. I mean, I think there's so many things you can get into a debate about. This is just a person who hates Israel. I'm really sorry to say. This is an example of something we've discussed. When your livid, raging hatred is your entire life, is you just want to destroy this thing called Israel. And if it's millions of citizens, I don't know what your plan is with them, but destroy them all too in the process. And if you've got that level of hatred, you are capable of hallucinating and imagining these thousands of dead Gazan babies dying. You can imagine that Israel didn't offer an evacuation corridor, or didn't bring incubators in. You can imagine that in every other war that's ever been fought, when actually babies did die in those incubators, and they were, there you understand it's war. Here you're comparing Israel bringing incubators in, but there might have been a little moment when they didn't allow Israel to take them out, and the electricity stopped for a small amount of time, and comparing that to putting people in gas chambers. I mean, it's beyond revolting. I don't really have much more to say. You know me, my style. I tried to Iron Man the other side. I tried to really understand where they're coming from. I think this was just whatever. I don't have much to say.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I don't often see you react like that to these kinds of critiques that Israel gets. So the point definitely is has been really taken.